The streets of Tulsa will turn into extended gutters, overflowing with liberal tears. Soon all the whores and race traitors will shout, "Save us," and we will whisper, "No."
HBO's new series, Watchmen, began with an explosive pilot episode that has everyone wanting more. It's a suspenseful masterpiece that flexes its creative side impeccably, and I just want it to be Sunday already so that I can be taken back to the world of Watchmen once again. The series starts with the 1921 Tulsa race riot. This, of course, you've probably never heard of. It doesn't seem like anyone has, at least. It's a hidden stain of American culture that all started with a misunderstanding of a young black man and a white woman. Long story short, he did nothing wrong, confirmed by the woman in the encounter, but the KKK used it as a way to push their agenda and petitioned for justice. Of course, nothing happened, so justice was just a facade of their hatred, and they turned it into a full-blown war, a massacre. They marched into a segregated black community known as Greenwood, also known as Black Wall Street. It was the wealthiest black community maybe ever, and they burned everything to the ground, kidnapping, raping, and murdering every African American that they saw. The opening to the show being this is incredible, if not only that it just made people aware that this actually happened. I mean, it's essentially America's Night of Broken Glass, the night in which Jewish businesses in Germany were burned to the ground by Nazis, and it happened to us. I mean, it happened in our home. Pertaining to this story, however, it sets the tone that race issues have existed in all of American history, and still today with what happens in the show. The other component to this, however, and ultimately why I think the showrunners decided to start the series like this, is because it's a pretty complicated issue. When angry white people marched on the police station demanding the lynching of a young black man, the police defended him, making the police an enemy. Keep in mind, this was still during segregation, so I'm sure even the boy that was caught up in all of this thought that the police would turn him over to save their own butts. But they held strong, and they defended him. True American justice. The other reason that they're starting the show with this is because it shows an incredible prejudiced group attacking innocent people. And in the current timeline of the story, police officers are being attacked just as Black Wall Street was attacked. A single night called the White Night, when the 7th Cavalry got together and attacked all police and police families in a single swoop. The silent movie to start everything was about Bass Reeves, the first black deputy U.S. Marshal west of the Mississippi, and hero to the young boy that we see. It doesn't cover the scope of this video, but this man had an incredibly interesting life. Some amazing, some not so much, but interesting nonetheless. As Bass Reeves on screen states that there will be no mob justice today, mob justice gets taken out against the Greenwood community. They have to flee, avoiding gunfire and grenades, pitchforks and daggers, fire. If you're wondering what this uniform is, it's a World War I uniform, and it's taking place after the war had just ended. He was one of the black Americans that took up arms to protect this community in real life, and his presence here is an early push that they failed, and that their last hope is to run away. All is lost, and of course it's all burnt to the ground later on. The planes you see actually happened as well. The headlines in the paper also pretty real. I mean, the level of detail to this scene is incredible. I love it so much. But the boy's father gets him to safety in the trunk of a friend's car, but stays behind because they have no room. The boy watches as his parents die, and next we see him waking up at night, his protectors now also killed, and he must take care of a young baby girl. He also now has a note that says, "Watch over this boy." That was given to him by his father before he died. It was meant for whoever found him, assumingly, even written on the back of a letter that would let the reader know that he's the son of a soldier. In terms of storytelling, I think that it could also be telling us something else. Not to watch over this boy, but to watch over this boy. Because right after he reads it, he finds a baby girl that he must now watch over, that previously we had no clue was in the car. After some more digging, I found that this letter was actually a German propaganda campaign, trying to convince African American soldiers that they would find comfort in German prisons if they surrendered. They were promised a heated room and plenty of food in South Germany. I'm guessing he kept it from the war, or the KKK were maybe sending these out as a form of satire to show black citizens as weak or foolish. I'm not really sure there, but again, just another level of depth. to the scene. Finally, the title card. It's summer and we're running out of ice. I love this opening scene so much. I mean, the depth, the historical value, the introduction to this character, we will discuss later on, but I mean, ooh, it is so good. Okay. Next, we come to modern day, and I'll explain now the overall environment so that we don't have to piece everything together over the course of the video. Essentially, police were hunted down to the point that being a police officer was no longer a safe job. No one except your spouse can know, not even your children, or you put all of your lives at risk. Because of the hostile climate created by the White Knight and the cavalry simultaneously breaking into all police officers' homes and trying to murder them, all police officers, or at least the majority of them, now wear masks to hide their identities. The 7th Cavalry is just this radical group that is very much anti-police and anti-anyone that isn't white. Just think KKK and you'll be fine. They follow the words of Rorschach, a masked vigilante that gave his life trying to save millions in the comic, and his words have somehow been twisted to warm the hearts of these terrorists. That is why each of them wears this mask inspired by the original. So that's the environment going into the scene and throughout the rest of the world. So moving forward, what turns out to be a member of the 7th Cavalry attacks a police officer trying to request the release of his firearm from Panda. It's an interesting policy that we really don't have to debate about. It's terrible. But it acts as commentary to show that the police have been abusing their power, and as such, systems like this have been put in place. Also, no way he survived this. I have no clue why the showrunners kept him alive, so he's either important or they missed an opportunity to further stress the risk of the role as a police officer. Next, we come to Judd Crawford, the chief of police. I found it really odd that he never kept his identity hidden. That was until I saw that his house was protected at all times by guards, so it made more sense. Of course, that was right before we see him in transit, still with a huge vulnerability in their setup. Regardless, he meets with Looking Glass, who wears a reflective mask, and I love this actor, but he looks super sad. So, like, this is probably a terrible origin story to get him where he is, and I'm really dying to know more about it. The chief goes and speaks with the widow, letting her know what happened and seeing if they broke the rules about not telling people who he was. We transition to Angela, giving a class demonstration on baking, and an odd, brief clip showing Dr. Manhattan on Mars tearing down a structure that he built. Now, I have a matrix of what-ifs that currently lead my theories on why we're seeing this. I think that he will be in the show at some point, and recently a trailer showed a blue hand briefly, so I guess that aligns. But his presence in this story and the storytelling that can happen means anything is on the table. Dr. Manhattan is basically a god, last known to be on Mars for his own desire to create life, which could mean his own personal solace, making babies with himself and such. The perfectly normal way of reproducing, or it could mean designing his own animal kingdom, or even humanity 2.0. With that, you really have to Westworld this thing up and ask if you're really seeing what's going on here, if we're even on Earth, or what. I mean, he wanted to create life. We may be watching an alternate reality of life, but I'm not going to jump naked into the squid's mouth of theories yet. We need more information first, and Angela is here teaching the class and the audience about how she isn't a cop anymore. She was one of the people hurt during the White Knight. Something to note is the military still very much inspires this world. Look at the classroom. I mean, it seems normal, maybe an absurd number of globes, but this could also be an early foreshadow that there's multiple Earths. I mean, look at the solar system in the top right of the scene. Something is not right, and I think that they're trying to let us know very, very subtly that we're not seeing what we think that we're seeing. Also, what I'm referring to is that the Vietnam signs and the Bill of Rights being placed in the front of the classroom are pieces that the students should know. What's also interesting is the normality of this squid rain. I mean, we see it later on, but literally all over the classroom, this is taught to children as a scientific occurrence, meaning it's probably not. The next important part comes when the child asks if her business was paid for with red Redations. Red Redations are likely reparations for black citizens implemented by President Redford for all of the racist shit that has been done for years. Reparations also probably come in the form of black families not having to pay taxes, because later on, when Looking Glass is questioning the terrorist, he asks if all Americans should pay taxes. Immediately I was like, yeah, no big deal. That makes sense. But maybe not in this universe. And he apparently gives the wrong answer because, well, they knew that he was a part of the Ku Cuckold's cavalry. Next, we come to the squid falling from the sky scene, which I'm just now noticing the importance of three little birds, maybe to act as, don't look at this. This isn't a big deal. Everything's going to be all right. It plays as squid rains from the sky, which is an abnormal occurrence for us, I guess. And I've plotted and read all of the theories. I will just say this. It's bullshit, whatever it is. It's either a reminder by the government so people remain at peace in the world and nuclear tensions don't rise again. It's either this supervillain asshole still doing it. In the comics, he dropped a squid on New York and killed 3 million people in the name of peace. Or it's Dr. Manhattan tomfoolery. Or I guess maybe it's a mix of all of these. I mean, the classrooms teach it, trucks designed to clean for it. It is large-scale manipulation, or these are all a product of that tomfoolery early on. And this is just a reminder, continually letting people know that an alien invasion could occur and that they need to not nuke each other. Next, we arrive at home and she gets a page titled Little Bighorn. The naming is important, of course. It refers to the Battle of Little Bighorn, which was a battle against Native Americans in which the U.S. forces lost hard. Not only did General Custer die in this battle, he led the 7th Cavalry to their defeat as well. It's likely a code name just for this play on words. I guess it means that the police believe that they're the Indians in this operation, or hope to be? I don't know. Next, we go to the bakery, and this scene is really odd. The TV show being announced is about the original Minutemen, the superhero/vigilantes who fought for our country. We have this guy with a weird sign that I didn't understand until 2 seconds later when I read this newspaper, and then I really didn't understand it, because it states that the KKK have vandalized the Statue of Liberty and forced its closure. So he's celebrating that? Yeah, I don't know. Also, this is taking place in the original Greenwood community. Her business is literally where Black Wall Street stood, and furthermore, where this person is waiting for her return. Now, I think this person is this young boy, based on the mark on his face, and now them literally being back where his story started. Not much can be said about this character after the first episode. The most interesting thing he did was ask if she thought that he could lift 200 pounds, which may allude to him being a character called Hooded Justice. He's playing a dull old man, but I get the impression that he is still very much there and sharp as a tack. Only time will tell. One last thing before we move on from the scene. The newspaper also stated that Vate officially declared dead, which is this person. So something clearly is wrong here. Possible timeline play and possible multiple Earth or humanity 2.0 theory, etc., etc. Next, we come to the secret vigilante gun room and literally the coolest quote-unquote superhero in this world yet. She drives to Nixon Ville, which is where the political climate really gets interesting. Notice that in this space and on the cavalry hats, they have the normal 50-star U.S. flags. Seems right? Wrong. Look at their flag, because we know from the classroom scene that Vietnam became a part of the United States. So them having what we perceive as normal American flags actually put them as the conservative folk unwilling to accept this change to the new America. Also keep in mind this interesting tidbit. If African Americans are getting reparations for all the past stuff that has happened to them in this universe, these people are inherently upset. Look at people that are in positions of power. Her house as a police officer is stunning. And all of the people in this neighborhood, all these white people, are in poverty. They likely blame it on the fact that black citizens don't have to pay taxes, and they do. The kid that lashed out was obviously reciting some nonsense his parents said to him. But at the end of the day, this system is still very much flawed. That child, in some kind of way, is suffering because of disproportionate income at home because his parents are likely both white people that pay taxes, while Topher's mother and father doesn't. We know that this wasn't the setup under Nixon because they call them Redfordations and they live in Nixonville. So, yeah, it's a complex issue. I just want to make sure that you understand why people have an issue. The show is very much about exploring the morally gray. In this case, it's a little more nuanced. It's racism, 100%, but segregation is also happening as a byproduct of traditionally disenfranchised folk not paying taxes and white people having to. And I say disenfranchised because I can't really picture it only being African American that don't pay taxes. I have to imagine that if red predations existed, that it would be for more than just Black Americans. Okay, moving on. Now, when she kicked in this person's door, I thought that they were going to call back to the boy in the classroom as how she knew that he was racist, and as such, likely a member of this 7th Cavalry group. But that callback didn't happen, so oh well. I guess perhaps more importantly, it's telling us that she always has her finger on the pulse of this community just to make sure that nothing happens preemptively. Next, we come to the 7th Cavalry propaganda as police watch together. His speech is a mix between Rorschach's words and revamping modern anonymous Ku Klux Klan. It's a hate speech, obviously. The TikTok is likely a reminder of the doomsday clock getting closer to the end of the world. They release all guns for 24 hours and finish the meeting with some obvious foreshadowing that this person will die at the end of the episode. And this quote here.
Quis custodiet ipsos custodes?
Which has a few translations, but I think is intended of who will watch the Watchmen, to which the police force replies with this. Which I'm pretty sure means that we guard, or likely in the context meaning we watch. It's a pretty hype scene, and then we're taken to Sister Knight and Judd privately talking. It's a nice talk. I like their relationship over the course of this episode. Of course, I guess that's all over. So next, we're taken to the pod, and holy moly, what a scene. First off, I find it truly amazing that the person who looks most like the original Rorschach mask wears it openly as a member of the police force. I mean, his mask is literally moving like the original Rorschach mask did. It's either screaming that he's a traitor or a giant red herring to keep our attention on that and not another mole in the force. The big takeaways from this are police are okay with torturing people for little to no evidence, which I think we can all agree is wrong. Also, the 7th Cavalry believe that trans-dimensional attacks are hoaxes staged by the United States government, which brings us back to it's raining squid. Okay. We, the audience, still can't be sure, but the world believes that it's trans-dimensional attacks. I'll just say this, it's, again, probably not. I mean, it's most certainly not just that straightforward. Once again, this is either government manipulation, Dr. Manhattan tomfoolery, or this guy teleporting them in to keep the threat of alien attack alive. The extremely brutal torture works at the cost of this person's right to be not tortured by police, which I guess doesn't exist if they think you're a terrorist. And to that I say that there's no way that that could be ever abused. We next come to the cattle ranch and a brilliantly gruesome scene that ends with us learning about their organization willing to die to keep the cause quiet and a need for watch batteries. My guess is a bomb of some kind. I mean, a cancer bomb honestly doesn't seem like the craziest thing. It probably won't be that because subverted expectations. Also, this is the first time that I noticed this guy was in it. I like this guy. It's nice to see him as a good guy in something. Though now that I say that aloud, it probably means that he is the bad guy again. The aerial fight was incredible. I hope that they fix the ship up and do it more. I will suspend my disbelief that they survived the landing. But overall, yeah, great action, and I loved it. We finally come to Ozymandias, or Adrian Veidt, who has been missing and officially declared dead. This is assumingly taking place after the giant squid was teleported onto New York and killed 3 million people. At least, that's what happened in the comics. And so far, I think it's safe that we can assume that that's what's happening in the series, or happened in the series and were taking place after those comics ended. I'm sure that we'll get a flashback or something to that effect for people that haven't read the comics, to make it very, very obvious what happened in the climate that we're living in and why there is squid raining from the sky. He is living the life that I personally dream of. Probable androids waiting on his every need, sponge baths in the nude while he writes, and only the occasional mishap every now and then. The anniversary they're referring to is likely the anniversary of his disappearance or of the squid dropping to save humanity. I love the callback to his costume in the cake here. That is great. And I have to talk about this. I was hesitant at first, but I really think these two spherical structures in the background may also be hinting to multiple Earths or multiple timelines humanity 2.0 kind of thing. The arrows point away from each other as if we're diverging from the space-time continuum, or they also point away from Vate. So, I mean, it's basically the same argument as the multiple globes in the classroom, but if one works, they both work. This is also foreshadowing. The watch that he's given is a callback to the Doomsday Clock, which he prevented by uniting the world against a fictional alien invasion, again by dropping a giant squid on it, killing 3 million people. No big deal. The play he wrote, The Watchmaker's Son, is also very important because Dr. Manhattan was the son of a watchmaker, and he is the only one who has superpowers in this universe. Some high-level tomfoolery is happening here, and I love that word. The dinner scene is nice. The suspense caused by the tick-tocking while they discuss the watch batteries being used as a cancer bomb killed me. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. I thought that they were dead right there. It was a great cinematic tool. The truck is ambushed, possible inside job because of the spike strip used. Judd taken with a flash of bright white light, and then we come to Angela. She gets a call from an anonymous caller, but it's probably the old man that we saw. I'm pretty sure these are the same voices. And she arrives to find Judd hanging with the old man sitting below. She arrives to a bright white light, just the same as Judd's white light, and the man turns it off. However, when the camera shows the scene, he has nothing to produce this light, which brings to question if he has some kind of power to create this. Otherwise, we should see a giant light sitting behind him or in front of him. The 200-pound question from the scene before now becomes foreshadowing of him committing this act on the police chief. So yeah, I think that he has some kind of powers that we're going to learn about soon enough. Perhaps some high-level tech to make this work, and he is a vigilante in the same sense of all the other vigilantes that have cool tools that emulate superhero powers. One last thing to note before I end the video is the structure that Dr. Manhattan is destructing on Mars looks very similar to the one that Adrian Veidt is living in when we see him. Keep that in mind as well. If you liked this video, please be sure to leave it a like, comment, and subscribe for more just like it. The first episode was a wealth of information, a beautiful display of storytelling. I look forward to this series and everything that it has to offer with great anticipation, and I will be covering every episode moving forward. I even have some theories that I'm crafting that could be specific videos to better isolate the argument. If you want to support that and support this series, please be sure to check out our Patreon and donate whatever you would like. A big shout out to this month's highest tier donators, Chris Cole, Robert Holtz, and Michael Link. Much love, everybody, and I can't wait to talk to you all again soon.